When it comes to the shadow self, there are three parts that we have to understand before I dive into this topic today. This is the conscious side of the shadow, the conscious awareness, the unconscious, and the subconscious. These three parts are kind of different levels of the shadow, which is vital to understanding what people don't tell you when you are understanding your shadow self. So in this video, I'm going to dive into that exact reason what people are not telling you about shadow work and the shadow self. Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. If you are new around here, my name is Christina and I help empower people on their spiritual and healing journey. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and the bell notification so then you're notified of when I post a video, because it's my mission to share my message to as many people as possible. So with that being said, let's get on. So like I said, there are three kind of components or levels when it comes to the shadow self. Not many people talk about the shadow in this way. So when we are talking about the conscious awareness of the shadow, this may be where you have heard of the term shadow self or shadow work, and you begin to kind of make connections to your behaviors. You kind of start to bring into a little bit of awareness things that may not be serving you, that you've actually been on autopilot. So they're now in your conscious awareness, or you're aware of certain behavior traits, like you're very angry, you can get very jealous and manipulative. You're aware of it, but you don't actually do anything about it. You believe, well, that's who I am, because the ego has formed the attachment to that identity. So that is the conscious awareness part of it, when it was in our conscious mind. So the unconscious is kind of the next level of it. It's kind of unconscious, and then this is where like kind of inner child wounds may lie, suppressed emotions, our beliefs about ourselves, our beliefs about the world, when we've internalized things, our shame and guilt may reside in our unconscious awareness, or our autopilot behavior patterns that have been suppressed and not in our conscious awareness at all. Maybe you do manipulate, maybe somebody you know has a very jealous side, but they're just completely unaware of it. This is in our unconsciousness, in the shadow, and we have no awareness about it. So then the subconscious is the suppressed, completely denied, out of any sort of awareness at all. We suppress it, we don't want to know it, we deny it, and the ego doesn't even form an identity with these aspects of ourselves, because the shadow self are all these different aspects that we suppress in our shadow. We deny it because of two things. We feel shame and guilt. We associate these desires, these needs, these behaviors, these emotions, all with shame and guilt. So in the subconscious, it is absolutely 100% denied, pushed away in our we're not aware of it at all. And the reason why I'm explaining this is because it's to do with the one thing that people don't tell you, which is kind of like, well, they don't tell you that there is all of these levels. So what happens is that when we begin to do the shadow work, when we're aware of the shadow self, our shadow aspects, what happens is then we start to dive into our beliefs, our behavior patterns, aspects of ourselves that has its own needs and wants and desires. And we start to do the healing, the inner child work. Whilst the inner child and shadow work are not the same thing, the inner child is just a part of the shadow, where you may have formed beliefs and behavior patterns in childhood that get shut away and that you may not be consciously aware of. And so what happens here is when we begin to do that inner work, we begin to unravel our aspects of ourselves on that surface level. You begin to kind of release any shame and guilt associated with any inner child wounds, behavior patterns that we suppress and deny, that we don't allow ourselves to express. Maybe our voice is in our shadow. There's not bad things in the shadow, there's not good things in the shadow. It's everything that we deny and we don't want to be associated with, because at some point in our lives, mainly in childhood, we were shamed about it. We associated shame with it. So our voice, our authentic voice, may reside in our shadow. Our creativity may reside in the shadow. So when we begin to unravel this and remove the layers and become aware at the surface level, this is all surface level stuff, the inner child and the wounds, the belief work. When we begin to do that surface level work, we begin to say, well, now I can release that shame and guilt associated with that behavior. Now I can integrate that and be more authentic. I can speak my truth now, because it's now come, I've shined the light, I've illuminated that part of my shadow. So you embody that version of yourself that is speaking that truth. You embody that version now of yourself that is that creator, that creativity side, that artist. And now maybe you have released the shame and the guilt associated with any behavior patterns in your childhood, and you've done some belief work about yourself. So when we are doing this, we begin to accept these parts of ourselves. We no longer deny it. It's not in our unconsciousness. And so the ego then forms this new attachment to this new identity. You begin to label yourself as maybe as an empath. You uncover all of these wounds and stories about yourself in the shadows. So you now think, well, actually, I'm an empath, and now that's acceptable. And I no longer have shame and guilt associated with all of these emotions that I feel. So then the ego goes, well, this is acceptable now. I'm going to form an attachment with this. And then we kind of stop there when it comes to the shadow work. And this is the thing that nobody tells you, is that underneath that layer is our shadow even further. We kind of think, well, now I'm integrated and accepted the surface level aspects of myself. But even deeper in the subconscious, we don't address the jealous side of ourselves, our sexual deviant desires. We don't address those angry parts of ourselves, those deeper, darker aspects of ourselves that we have completely shut away because it is shameful and we feel guilty because there is shame associated with it because of society's expectations. So if you want to say we do have that darker, evil side of ourselves, but it's not actually anything to be shameful of, because often these darker parts of ourselves is just the jealousy, the manipulator, the one that wants to get her own needs or his needs met, because all these different aspects of ourselves that reside in our unconscious and subconscious awareness, well, it's not in our awareness, but it's all these aspects of ourselves that has its own needs and desires. But what no one tells you is that the fact you think that you've done that inner work and you then feel you've integrated when you just do that surface level work. We've not addressed the really toxic behavior patterns that are deep and programmed in that subconscious mind. And so this is where we are still operating from our toxic behavior traits rather than going deeper, because it's the surface level. This is why I was talking about that, these surface levels, and people still will not go deep enough to really transcend that so they can feel more whole and complete, more integrated. And when we are more integrated, when we choose to accept and love all of ourselves, then we become more authentic. We show those sides of ourselves more. We feel more integrated. So if we are a little bit angry and aggressive, we're able to stand in our boundaries. We're able to be firm and authoritative, not constantly lashing out and getting angry. And so what we do is we just release all the guilt and the shame associated with different aspects of ourselves in shadow work. And if you want to dive deeper into shadow work, understanding your shadow aspects of yourself, the doors are now open for my 5-week group program with the option of one-to-one coaching. For my integrated self wounds to wisdom, you have course video material with also weekly live calls from myself. We talk about the shadow, we talk about the emotional body, we talk about the connection to self, we get embodied in who we are, we transcend those, we release any guilt, and we address the mother and the father wound too. So if you want to come and join us, click the link in the pinned comments below. Doors do close on Friday the 11th of June, so hurry to claim your spot now. So with that all being said, I will see you on the next video. Much love.